Okay, Dr. Sahil, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Thanks to Almighty that we are back again with a new and lovely topic, impressive one as well, Iqbal and Marx, KARL Marx. So this is, I think, the fifth topic on ALLAMA Iqbal series that we are projecting smoothly and nicely with the blessings of Allah. So with your permission, sir, shall we begin?
Yes.
Thank you. So I will start with this very first question, sir. Since Karl Marx has been an influence to Marx in last century as well as in today's world, how do you see Allama Iqbal in relation to Karl Marx? Rather, how did Iqbal perceive Marx in his poetry as well as prose? Your thoughts, please.
Since Karl Marx has been not only a theorist, economist, thought leader, having a tremendous influence in philosophy and in social sciences generally. Beginning in the late 19th century, in the whole of 20th century, and having effects in 21st century also. But the period in which Iqbal was just living, he was very much aware of how, rather first-hand in the academic circles, he did fathom, or he observed that Marx has some significant value in terms of philosophy, in terms of his understanding of how he had the way from Hegel. You have the notions of dialectical materialism. How he just, not only Hegel, Feuerbach is another philosopher. How he translated, and Malthus as well as Darwin. So how he translated and transported his economic theory as a panica to the problems of industrial Europe, the post-industrial revolution, which had the way we have transition of societies from feudalism to capitalism, the malaise which capitalism has once things go from one stage to another stage. So in this thing, Iqbal is very much perceptive of how Karl Marx basically theorizes his approach of things. But simultaneously, even though Iqbal agrees with the end result, how the broader sympathy or compassion which the Marxian doctrine has, but in its what I should say causes, in the Marxism as a philosophy, he also disagrees, in the sense that Marx philosophy is based on a sort of a material theory, a sort of historical causation of things, in which when a society goes from one stage to another stage, the roots, the notions of good and bad, evil, so they are all relative. So things can be understood how societies evolve from one stage of production to other stage of devoid of any recourse to God or higher values, which Iqbal very much is. His philosophy is basically philosophy of. He is a in religious philosophy. He has mystical values. So the diagnosis of Marx has strong elements of, I will not say, if I just quote Bertrand Russell, his philosophy is not influenced primarily by philosophical materialism, but the economic causes are the primary causes. While in case of Iqbal, he wants he doesn't see the malaise of capitalism or in post-industrial evolution in that way. So so that's why if I quote him, he says in his poetry, "वो कली में बेतजली, वो मसीह है बेसलीब." So even though he's Moses, but he is Moses without that light. वो मसीह है बेसलीब. he's a prophet. Isa, he's a prophet. Prophet Isa, or what you should say, Jesus, Messiah basically, but he is without having a cross. Nis paigambro lekin dar bagal kitab daran. Well, he can take him to be a prophet, but he's not a prophet, but he has some book, which is Das Capital, which has some significant thing in it.
That is nice, sir. You have put it lovely. Okay. So, what are the commonalities and the points where Allama Iqbal disagrees with Marx?
Commonalities, in a sense, I just alluded to. Commonalities was his his compassion for poor people, the mankind in the early. If you go to late 18th century England, you can see in cotton gin workers, people were working 16 hours, young 13-year children, the condition,
Getting
less wages. So the compassion for mankind,
polite overall,
and unequal distribution of wealth, inequity, in that sense, which he said that system was basically unjust. So he wanted to have a fairer system. So in that context, Iqbal is also resonating Marx in that sense. But in as far as the theory of dialectical materialism is concerned, the diagnosis of it. So he's not agreeing with that diagnosis of this historical causation. So the way, if I'll just say, for example, हिस्ट्री द सॉर्ट ऑफ उसको कहते हैं तारीख का एक जबर होता है. देयर इज अ हिस्टोरिकल things in Marxian way of looking at things. So there is a particular process in which things can move from past, present to future, and there can be the way we have laws of physics, but you can have there's a historical way things can move. But even though that is the process of dialectical materialism, but the laws, just like laws of physics are there, the process will be like laws of physics in that sense. But for Iqbal, his sense of history, for example, if he quotes somewhere in reconstruction, so in Min Anfusi, there are three ways of looking at world. Knowledge comes from three sources. One is scriptures, one is Anfus and Afaq. The third is history, knowledge of history. So in the rise and fall of nations, so he is more agreeing with the Quranic notions, when nations can morally go weak and strong. Their rise and fall, he presupposes, or he is converted to that rise and fall of nations being that their moral decadence or going away from Quranic values. So his panic or prognosis diagnosis is different from that of Marx. So in this sense, so that's why. So for example, he says, and one thing where he agrees is regarding his the malaise of capitalism. Both Marx and Iqbal are critiquing capitalism in its effects. They have evil effects. For example, तमद्दुन के फसूकारी से मोहकम नहीं हो सकता, जहल में है जिस तमद्दुन के बिना सरमायादारी. So the base of a society which has a capitalism, raw capitalism, only profit motive. So it जहल में है जिस तमद्दुन की बिना सरमायादारी, तमद्दुन के फसूकारी से कोई मोहकम नहीं हो सकता. So even if you are civilized, but beneath that civilizational thing, that ugly face of capitalism is there, which is based only on profit motive. Yes,
that's good, sir. I just some beautiful lines of Iqbalian poetry from Bange Dera portion. I would like to quote them, if you allow me.
Yes.
उठो मेरी दुनिया के गरीबों को जगा दो, उठो मेरी दुनिया के गरीबों को जगा दो, खा के उमरा के दरो दीवार हिला दो, जिस खेत से दहका को मयसर न हो रोजी, उस खेत के हर खोशे गुंदुम को जला दो. When I read these lines, even since childhood, what I perceive, sir, is Iqbal in these lines warning or guiding his country fellow men to look for better, cleaner, and much open economical society, or just he's guiding them, his countrymen, to overthrow the yoke of capitalism once for all.
In Islam, he is basically also Iqbal is having humane heart, but it's his philosophy is that of Islam. In Islam, you should not have centralization of power or centralization of money. Should not be at one place.
Yes.
So that creates corruption. That creates a problem in that sense. So he's also speaking it in the same sense. He's
Yeah.
echoing it in these lines. So, for example, if I second it with it, Payami Mashriq, if you read, so he's putting Tolstoy, Marx, Mazda, Kohkan.
Okay.
And this he in that discussion he is putting them in all one when he is discussing in that marriage he is putting them all of them in this Mazda is an Iranian philosopher so and Kohkan is a sort of mystical he was mystically for Shirin he has used these things what is the enemy of mankind Zan Zar Zameen and Zar Zameen and
Then.
Zan these three things so he has even though Tolstoy was a feudal he donated all his wealth to what I should say poor people and other things. So as compared to Hegel, who wanted to let things should be accepted, people should accept whatever the realities are. Contradictions should be accepted in the dialectical principle. That's why he's critiquing Hegel. But appreciating Marx, Tolstoy, Mazdak is an Iranian philosopher, or Kohkan, the mystical poet, he puts them in the same थिंग
Same breath.
फॉर एग्जाम्पल पुरानी सियासत गरी ख्वार है जमीन मीर सुल्तानी से बेजार है क्या दौर सरमाया दरी गया तमाशा खाकर मदारी गया so you can so again you can say as an Marx Marx economic interpretation of history is related in the economic equity and other things. But for Iqbal, it's more or less in zikr, fikr, and fakr are the essential elements, if you can use the words in that sense. Yes.
Okay, thanks again. So, sir, how do you visualize notion of ownership of land, wealth, capital between the two? I mean, Iqbal and Marx.
Now, in Iqbal, in Marx, for example, he was influenced by earlier Fabian socialists, Owen, and there's a history though how even Marxism as a philosophy. So, in which there's to each according to wage, to each according his capacity. So, whatever. So, you should there should be equitable distribution. There should be no exploitation. So, in Marx theory of surplus capital. So, what capitalist does? He invests the surplus capital taken from the wages of liberal class. The labor may be intellectual labor or it may be a labor, normal labor. And he invests for the sake of profits, which create booms and busts in that industrial revolution. So that creates a sort of creative chaos, which is sometimes called a creative destruction. In capitalism theory, you have booms and busts. Then there are periods of employments and then large sections of unemployment. In between, Marx says that they take this surplus value and they invest it, and it creates problem. For Iqbal, if I use he is also seeing the same thing. He did not go for his exact, even though if you read Iqbal has in his earlier 19th century written book Ilm al-Iqtisad, starting 19th century in the school all of South Asia. So he was very much keen student of economics. But if I'll just second it with our one of the Caliph Hazrat Umar, so once there was some Sahabi, he took land. The land was not cultivated by that very person. One. So Hazrat Umar took it bad that he is taking he is taking the gains of that thing. That land is being shared by the person who owns it, but he is not actually tilling the crop. So he forcefully took the land from that Sahabi, I don't remember his name, Sayyid bin, and he distributed among it. So in Islam, one strong interpretation of Islam from following from tradition is that if there's unused land, capital, it a person cannot sit idle and take accrue the benefits from it. The people who own it, the benefit should be shared accordingly.
Yes.
So in that sense, you can have some what I should semblances between the thing, between the two. But in case of Iqbal, the source is Islam. In case of his, it's dialectical materialism. The processes of the history, which are materialistic, which are which are based on cause and effect. Because Marx is saying also religion is opium in that sense. Religion somehow will let that people should be accept their state of conditions. So for Marx, religion is not that thing. But for Iqbal, he has his way of interpreting religion and other things.
जी
Religion and in how this mitigating this economic exploitation.
बिल्कुल आपका कहना सही है। तो इसी तनाजुर में जो आपने अभी खुद भी जिसका जिक्र किया, पुरानी सियासत गरी ख्वार है, पुरानी सियासत गरी ख्वार है, जमीन मीरो सुल्तान से बेजार है, गया दौर सरमायादारी का, गया दौर सरमायादारी का, तमाशा दिखाकर मदारी गए.
Yes, yes, yes. It's part of that earlier capitalism.
So he's talking about the earlier period of capitalism. Okay, Dr. Suhail, moving ahead. Can Iqbal's reaction to capitalism and his sympathy towards socialism, I would like to repeat it, can Iqbal's reaction to capitalism and his sympathy towards socialism be considered genuine? Because in the subcontinent had not experienced full blast of capitalism. Your thoughts, please.
A lot of people may say that in Iqbal's time, even though Marxian theory is normally viable, when there is a huge, people have moved from agrarian economy to the capitalistic economy, industrialization has gone. But at that time, the Indian the subcontinent, there was not capitalism was not. But you can say the effects of Western imperialism, the way European nations they were competing for their colonies for the sake of economic exploitation. So they were very much, pretty much glaring, and the colonial effects which you can perceive, Iqbal could see it in that sense. So in that sense, his reaction to capital. So he was to his reaction from capitalism to socialism can be called genuine in that sense. He could sense things how they are coming. So even current data, even subcontinent, you can see large swaths of poverty, slums, and in the midst of slums you will see islands of these capitalists accent, and in whole of this Asia, South Asia, in that sense. So he could sense things in that sense, and that reaction was coming in that sense. Although you can say one critique of modern day capitalists is that for Marx, equity and what I should say, capital, they will not go hand in hand. If, for example, a capitalist goes rich, the wages will go down. But last century, wages also have grown somewhat, slightly more as compared to, even if capitalists have become richer, the wages of the poorer. But it's also effects of Marx or effects of socialistic philosophies. But the point is how people have not been able to appropriate Iqbal also, if they want to work out, see Islam as a sort of social justice, economic, so that rich poor should not be left off the loop. Even though in Islam there are other mechanics also. There is Baitul Mal, there is Zakat, there is Sadaqah. There is some way, there is idea of whole notion of justice, that people should, you should, God is testing you if you don't, if rich will take money only on in their thing. So there's another, so we can see this thing also. You can see Iqbal's thing with that thing also.
Okay, so a few more lines. I would like to read them out to you. पालता है बीच को मिट्टी की तारीकी में कौन दरियाओं की मौजों से उठाता है सहाब, कौन लाया खींच कर पश्चिम से बादे साजगार, खाक ये किसकी है, किसका है ये नूरे आफ़ताब, किसने भर दी मोतियों से खोशे गुंदम की जेब, किसने भर दी मोतियों से खोशे गुंदम की जेब, मौसमों को किसने सिखलाई खोए इनकलाब. Would you please like to throw some light on these
So
lines?
he's actually saying that this whole of nature it belongs basically to God or some superior metaphysics. It's not that some capitalist will or some owner will monopolize it. He's trying to elude it. Dunya wal arzu lillah wal. So it's a God's world, planet. It's so you should share it. It's not nobody's ownership is there in that sense. So he's a poet. He's also trying to say. So in the last maybe lines, "Ye khuda hai dunya." So maybe it's like the last
Yes,
line.
yes. ओ खुदाया ये जमी तेरी
हाँ
नहीं तेरी नहीं
हाँ हाँ.
तेरे आबा की नहीं तेरी नहीं
So
मेरी
it's a
नहीं.
cry of that thing, na? Maybe against feudalism, against maybe
Yeah, yeah.
harsh, crude capitalism,
Capitalism.
basis only on the basis. You know, capitalism can have human face, but the way in earlier 19th century. But if it's only based on profit, and if it's only based on you just lock capital, you lock labor, you lock resources, if you for this only for the sake of profit motive, then this is a cry, "ए दुनिया तेरी आबा की नहीं आबा की नहीं आबा." So that's the
तेरे
way.
आबा की नहीं तेरी नहीं मेरी नहीं.
Ah, yes. So that's it. So if we live there here on this planet for finite amount of time, we should try to just share resources. That's it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Before I would like to wind it up. Would you like to sum up this Iqbal and Marxism in a few more lines so that
I would say broadly Iqbal and Marx, as far as their not diagnosis, prognosis, how they wanted to. That's a sort of, for example, when he says that Marx is a person with heart, but his mind is kafir.
oh,
So in theory, he doesn't believe in God or he doesn't believe in higher metaphysics apart from the dialectical process of history. But his heart is at the right point. His diagnosis may be different. So in that sense, Marx and their semblance is there. But as for there, so in the sense for creating a better world, both of these people they try to see how best we can just see mankind in a better way, in a more equitable way, more harmonious way, and so that resource should be equitably, which is the cry of our times also. So if we have a planet of 8 billion people, how Iqbal as a Muslim internationalist or even Marx, even the Marxism has failed in that sense. In China and maybe Russia, there are few countries there, so there may be some Marxist, apologetic Marxist, but the values are there. That basic thing is there. How that can still be relevant for our times also.
that's great, sir. Uh, I would like to end this lovely session with these lines. तेरी किताबों में ए हकीम माश रखा ही क्या है आखिर जहाँ मगरिब के बुदकदों में कलीसाओं में मदरसों में जहाँ मगरिब के बुदकदों में कलीसाओं में मदरसों में हवस की खून रेजियाँ छुपाती है अक्लो अय्यार की नुमाइश. So on this note,
But I'll just
yeah, please.
these are his lines. Maybe they are sometimes Iqbal also says that he's not totally agreeing with Marx. So he's also saying that the sort of real solidarity of mankind cannot be, for example, on the basis of economic thing. So if you want, it's first is the human compassion. Human compassion comes after, then you come have that economic. So the order should be changed. For Marx, the economic equality that should be first. Here, where Iqbal disagrees with Marx, and the way a whole sort of last century imperialism and other things search for market, search for colonies, and this globalization of capital in that sense so the diagnosis is different in that sense. That's why Iqbal is just extending it more from Marx to larger canvas.
जहाँ मगरिब के बुदकदों में कलीसाओं में मदरसों में हवस की खून रेजियाँ छुपाती है अक्लो अय्यार की
That's why Marx would not want you to settle for the existing conditions. what I should say. So that will create a lot of frustration, and it will, for Iqbal, you find that it's wrong, but the way you have to correct it, the corrective mechanisms, that they have different routes.
Well, sir, thank you very much. And on that note, I would like to end this session. Thanks again. And inshallah, very soon we'll come with a new topic for the audience.
Okay.
May Allah bless you. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.